Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Marilyn and I'm glad you're here on this bright Hawaiian sunny day in Hawaii. I spoke to my daughter yesterday and she's struggling through -0 Fahrenheit weather, and she said even her teeth hurt. So I can't handle that kind of weather anymore, so I have arthritis. So I'm really happy that I am living in a very sunny climate. But today I wanted to talk to you about unhauling books, favorite books. Why would I do that? Well, in my last video, I talked about rereading books. And if you only had a certain amount of books to reread, which ones would that be? And while I was looking through my shelves, I realized that I had a lot of favorite books that I want to unhaul. Why? Well, I wrote down some of the reasons. And, well, the main reason is space right now. We have a new member of our family. My daughter got married, and we want to welcome her spouse by letting her into all of the spaces in our house, and having so many books was preventing that. And also, because of my getting older, I really wanted to pick the books that I know that I'm going to reread, or that means something to me because of something that is special in any way, that I know that even if I don't reread it, that I want to keep it as a memory, just to look at it and say, this is a book that gave me joy. So, what other reasons? Well, I'm sort of unhauling. I'm sort of rethinking my channel for next year, what I want to do, what I don't want to do. And I thought that I wanted to start with a clean slate. And I know that part of my plans for the next year is not buying too many books, and that's because of, number one, I have to be honest, is money. Now, I live on a fixed income, and right now only one person in our family is working, so money is tight. However, even though money is tight, I know I'm going to buy books, and some of my plans next year involve travel. Now, how does this work, right? You're saying you're tight on money, and yet you're talking about traveling. Well, I'm very fortunate that my son works for an airline. So all of my any extra money, I really want to put toward going on a trip to Europe next year to celebrate my 75th birthday. So I don't have to worry about the planes part of it. Of course, there's a lot of extra money involved in traveling, but I don't know, I've been feeling lately that this is my last hurrah of traveling very far, and for many reasons. I've been suffering with a lot of ailments in the last year, and of course no one knows what's going to happen in the future, but I want to make my space as comfortable as I can make it, and welcoming. And actually, I had a little accident today when I was trying to get all these books. I had a lot of books on top of a small shelf that I told you is on the side, on the left side, and a whole bunch of books fell down, and it's my fault because I should never have just placed the books on top of that small shelf. And I didn't get hurt, but yeah, that's a consideration. Keeping my space as spacious and safe as I can. And I realized that some of the favorite books that I own, I'm not going to read anymore, at least in a print fashion. And that's what made me decide to do this video. So on that vein, I've been doing a lot of reading on Kindle. which is much easier for me. Yet, of course, I want to reread books in print. And I'm also doing some audio. So I don't need to keep that many books in print anymore. So that's enough of an introduction. Let's get on to the books. Now, if you saw the thumbnail, I have 2 copies of this wonderful book, and it is a wonderful book. It's a sad book, and I think I talked about it before. It's Francaise. I think that's how you pronounce it, by Irene Nemirovsky. I think I bought this in Paris. I'm pretty sure I did. And then I probably picked up another copy. So I don't know if I'm going to keep either one of these books. So anyway, reach out to me if you want one copy, because it's really a good book. It's a favorite. So one reason that I'm thinking of giving it away, well, it's not that chunky. I was wondering which one was the better copy, but it's a novel, and it's a novel about the Holocaust, which is really not my thing, and I didn't know it was it's not a memoir. It's a novel that Irene Nemirovsky, did I say her name right? Nemirovsky wrote during the war, and there's a big afterwards, because after she wrote it, she had a chance to escape. It's a very complicated family situation where her mother was safe, but she wasn't, depending on what part of France you were in at the time. But it's sad because she had a chance, but she decided she didn't want to leave Paris. And her book is the fiction book that she wrote. It's beginning in Paris on the eve of the Nazi occupation in 1940. And Francaise tells the remarkable story of men and women thrown together in circumstances beyond their control. As Parisians flee the city, human folly and surfaces in every imaginable way. A wealthy mother searches for sweets in a town without food. A couple is terrified at the thought of losing their jobs, even as their world begins to fall apart. Moving on to a provincial village now occupied by German soldiers, the locals must learn to coexist with the enemy in their town, their homes, even to their hearts. And she's writing this as nonfiction because this was happening. She made it into a story, but this was actually happening around her. And it says here, when Irene Nemirovsky began working on this book, she was already a highly successful writer living in Paris, but she was also a Jew. And in 1942, she was arrested and deported to Auschwitz, where she died. For 64 years, this novel remained hidden and unknown. It tells, one thing that's very unique about this book is that it's Parisian. It's really Parisian, and it really explains how the Parisians reacted to the Nazi invasion, how different people that probably she noticed or met in real life or made up, but through real stories. So it's fascinating, but it's also very sad. And if I want to read this again, I think I'm going to read it on Kindle. And so if anyone wants one or both of these copies, please let me know in the comments, because it's really, really shows Paris in particular during the occupation. So let me know. So that's the first favorite book that I'm unhauling. So what's the second one? Well, I talked about The Country Girls by Edna O'Brien just last week as one of my favorite books that I would keep. I would read if it was I think it was 10 books that I would reread if there were only 10 books on my shelf to reread. But I'm not going to give this one away. I'm going to unhaul this one, which is The Country Girls, 3 novels and an epilogue by Edna O'Brien, with a new introduction by Mayor McBride. And the reason that I'm going to unhaul this is because there's no way that I'm going to read 3 novels in this particular book. Let me just tell you, I liked all 3 of these novels, the Country Girl trilogy. And so the Country Girls are Kathleen, Kate, Brady, and Bridget, Baba, Brennan. And their story begins, like I said last week, in a small repressive village in the west of Ireland in the years following World War II. Kate is a romantic looking for love. Baba is a survivor. And they set out in the first novel to conquer the bright lights of Dublin. The second part of the trilogy is called The Lonely Girl, and it was my favorite part of the trilogy. And I just love this book. I think it also has a different name. I think it was called The Green-Eyed Girl. And this is when they're in Dublin already. And so it's all their adventures. And the last one is Girls in Their Wedded Bliss. And it really ties up the whole trilogy in a knot. So I think my favorite was The Lonely Girl. But I really like, this part is Girls in Their Married Bliss, and it, like I said, she ties up, Edna O'Brien is a wonderful writer, and the way she ties up the novel at the end was just chef's kiss, as they say. So then, charting the progress of women's lives from the high spirits of youth to the chill of age, these are novels of heartbreaking empathy, rigorous honesty, and peerless beauty. It's both painful and hilarious and remains one of the major accomplishments in Edna O'Brien's career. I heard that it was very largely autobiographical, and also that, well, the writing is just gorgeous anyway, but also I just wanted to say that Irish literature in general is one of my favorite types of literature. So even though I'm going to unhaul this book, there might be a chance where I buy the other 2 parts of the book in a print form. So I will be adding to my I will be adding to my bookshelf if I do that. The next book is a Victorian favorite by Wilkie Collins. Now I was buddy reading The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins with my good friend Nathan, and he gave up on it, and I'm switching to an audio version of it. I'm not sure if I'm giving up on The Moonstone, but a book that I am unhauling that I really, really loved was The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. And I buddy read this with a former booktuber, and she convinced me to read this book, though it is very chunky. It is, with all the appendixes, I'm trying to see what, like over 600 pages. And that's not my thing, 600 pages. But it was such a wonderful experience. I really recommend this book, but obviously I'm not going to reread it in this version. Yet, one thing that made me really love this book is that I bought it secondhand, and the person who read it before me had little notes and little things that she noticed about the book that really made this book even triple enjoyable. The book itself, reading it with the former booktuber, and reading it with an anonymous former reader. It was just a wonderful experience. And you might think, well, why don't you keep it? Well, the size, and because I already experienced that, and if I want to read it again, which I don't think I will, I can read it on Kindle. But I really, really love this book. It's a Victorian classic. Just let you know a little bit about what it's about. It opens with Walter Hartwright's eerie encounter on a moonlit London road, and he's drawn into the sinister intrigues of Sir Percival Glyde and his charming friend, Count Fosco. But basically, he sees a woman in white while he's if I remember correctly, he's in a carriage, and he sees this woman in white. And it says also here that Wilkie Collins' aim was, according to a friend, to inspire the creepy effect, as of pounded ice dripped down the back. Since the novel's first publication in 1860, generations of readers have experienced just this sensation. Like I said, I really enjoyed reading this book, but I'm going to unhaul it from my shelves and let someone else enjoy it in the same way I did in print, and with these anonymous reader's notes, annotations. Okay, so that's The Women in White. And you might ask, I don't think The Moonstone is as good. I've read about 150 pages, and it's not as long as this book. And it was said to be The Moonstone, one of the first detective stories, but it's very overwritten, and there's a lot of things that were triggers about disabilities, about how women were treated. But mostly the book was written as a serial novel published by Charles Dickens and by his publishing company, and you can just see Dickens. Now, if you love Dickens, you might love it, but I'm not really a fan of Dickens, I have to be honest. But I'm not saying I will never read anything else by Wilkie Collins, because that's not true. I think that he wrote for the masses. He wrote for people who weren't in the upper crust, so to speak, of the British society of the Victorian time. And that makes it interesting, but it also makes it quite sad. So anyway, what is the next book that I'm unhauling? It's a book that I read with Sandy of Miss Reads a Lot, and we had a really good time reading it. I liked it better than she did. I gave it 5 stars. It was one of my favorite books of, I think it's 2021, and it's How Green Was My Valley. And it has a really beautiful photo in the front. And so this is Llewellyn's classic novel of memory. Hugh Morgan is about to leave home forever as a huge slag heap has crept down menacingly upon his childhood home. He reminisces about the golden days of his youth, when South Wales still prospered, when coal dust had not yet blackened the valley. And drawn simply and lovingly with a crisp Welsh humor, his characters fight, love, laugh, and cry, creating an indelible portrait of people that will live long in the reader's memory. And one thing I remember, it's that it's written in Welsh music. His writing is superb. And I'm just going to read you the simplicity and beauty of the first chapter. I am going to pack my 2 shirts with my other socks and my best suit in the little blue cloth my mother used to round her hair when she did the house, and I'm going from the valley. And you will love this coming of age novel. For me, I'm not going to read it again in this format. I might read it again in another format, or I might listen to it. I think that would be the best way for me to reread this book, is to hear the Welsh music, so to speak, of the language. So that's my next to last book. And the last book is A Room with a View. And I think I also read this with Sandy of Miss Reads a Lot. And it's by E.M. Forster. I loved this book, but I didn't love it as much as other E.M. Forster books. So let me tell you what it's about. A charming young English woman, Lucy Honeychurch, faints into the arms of a fellow Britisher when she witnesses a murder in a Florentine piazza. And she's attracted to this man, George Emerson, who is entirely unsuitable. So, why I loved it when I was reading it, but looking back on it, I think I would enjoy it more since I'm really starting to read audio, in an audio. I think I would really like it in audio, and I think I saw a movie based on it that I liked better than the book, which is very unusual for me. So those are 5 books that I'm unhauling, even though they're my favorites. Have you favorite books that you, for one reason or another, got rid of? Let me know down in the comments. And if you want any of these books, let me know, and I will be delighted to send them to you. I hope you're having a wonderful holiday vacation, if you're on vacation, or just the holiday season. I'm pretty low-key, but I'm enjoying the weather and trying to get to the beach and really get outside and do exercise and just try to enjoy my health, since I'm feeling a little better lately. And I've been doing, I went back to doing yoga, and I really enjoyed, I used to do yoga every day, and I gave it up for other types of exercise, and then I gave it up because I was either not feeling well or too busy with other things, like a wedding and my other daughter coming to town. So now I'm overhauling my shelves and fixing them up. And don't get me wrong, I'm reading. I haven't really talked about the books that I've been reading in the last month, but I'm going to do a mid-month wrap-up, and I have to say that the end of the year has gone much better than sort of the beginning of the year. This year of reading hasn't been as special, at least in the beginning of the year, as other years, but it's ending with a bang, and that's the most important thing. I think I read 85 books, even though it's not been, not all of them have been 5-star reads, and I'm sure everyone is on Booktube is going to be given their end of the year analysis of what they have been reading, and I'm looking forward to that, and to really getting to my top 10 of the year. And until we meet again, I'm wishing everybody just have a healthy, happy holiday, and until we meet again, of course, as always, aloha from Hawaii.